It's episode 7, Striker. We've made it to episode 7 without getting banned. Can you
Yeah,
believe it?
I swearing.
Wow, fuck. Oh, shit. 2. Right. Ashleigh Bradley, another young person, female, besotted with racing. Ashleigh, tell us what's going on. Why racing?
Hi, Joe. Thanks for having me on your show. Hi, Perry Striker. I fell into racing and I really call it falling. We were invited very kindly to the King's Place, which was a relatively glamorous event, or a lot more glamorous than we expected. And I've said it 1,000 times, and I'm going to say it today as well for anybody listening. One of the things that's really captured me about racing are the race days, because it's a day that you can go out, have adult fun. It doesn't require drinking. It doesn't require eating. Of course, you can do both of those things and they look after you very, very well. And you also don't have to bet. You can just follow the horses and enjoy a great day out at the races. And racing has become this great mystery of so many things to discover about racing. And the more you dig, the more you find. So that's really what sparked my interest. And I call it falling, like falling in love. I've been dropped down the not the rabbit hole, the horse hole. Let's call it the horse hole.
And when I met you, what I found interesting and intriguing was that your personality lends itself to analyzing things and sometimes overanalyzing, one would say. Um, but your journey so far in racing, I mean, has even started pedigrees and breeding and all this other stuff, which I feel racing doesn't talk about, right? So there's a million podcasts about racing, but no one ever really discusses. Like last week with the two young lads, we discussed the barrier. So they thought this was an elitist sport that was unattainable to the average man on the street or woman. Um, and I know that you've got a nice, successful business, etc. So finances weren't necessarily a barrier for you, but lack of understanding that there was a bigger picture than just the eating, the drinking, and the gambling, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that certainly I've become most interested in is the horse itself. I think you realize that the horse is an athlete. And I mean, Striker was, a lot of people would think of the jockey, but Striker was very adamant, when chatting to me about it, saying that the horse is the athlete. And when you start delving into the horses themselves, the breeding themselves, which you don't have to be a horse owner to really do and appreciate, it brings a whole new element to racing. So I was very fortunate as a newbie to meet some very famous trainers, two very famous trainers in the South African horse racing circuit, Mace Roberts and Sean Terry, which was a privilege, and I was able to ask them some really interesting questions. And there's so much around what makes up horse racing that, yes, I do like analyzing information, which is probably why I ended up looking into the breeding side of things. But I think if we break it down from the beginning, one's got an infinite number of hours that you can talk about all the various elements of horse racing: stabling, breeding, race day protocol. And there's so many components. There's the jockeys, of course, there's the horse owners, there's racing itself as a business, there's the gambling aspect, there's the fun fashion day out aspect. So you can really delve into so many parts of it. And I think it really appeals to so many different people because of that. So if you're a fashion pundi and you just want a great day out, I promise you're going to have a great day at the races. You're going to love it. If you are an analytical person and you really want to get into the nitty gritties about breeding, just breeding on its own, there's so much for you to discover. So subsequent to my day out, I've started doing some great reading, and I found there's some really great books on horse racing, which give you a lot of additional information. And I think one of the questions I was asking when I first met you was, what is the difference between racing in South Africa versus racing in America or racing in the UK or Dubai? And again, that's another element to racing that one can sit and chat about for hours and hours.
Hours, yeah. Look, I mean, you haven't read any of the books I've written in racing, I don't think yet.
I didn't know you'd written any books. You didn't mention
I think I've written about 78 checkbooks.
Oh. I was going to say you should publish the list at the bottom of the podcast, but don't do that.
So funnily enough, one of my biggest things in racing, and we'll let Pierre have a chat now, but I know you met Sean and you met Mace, but one of my issues with racing is anecdote. Okay? And we live in a world, it's 2024, we live in a world of science and math, right? And I personally, as an owner and a breeder, I don't feel that, generally speaking, in South Africa, technology and analytics have been utilized as much as they have been in other countries. So, for example, there's a trainer in Australia who trains 600 racehorses.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, if you asked any trainer in South Africa, does he want to train 600 racehorses, he'd say yes. If you then asked him how he's going to do it, he couldn't tell you.
Yes. I remember having a very specific conversation with Sean Terry about how do you as a trainer, because he's got horses all over the country, how do you as a trainer manage how do you manage the training of each of those horses? And I suppose it's a very organic process, which is fantastic for him. But I definitely think technology's got a place to play in horse racing, and 100%. Also in making it more accessible. I think the thing that I was so astounded by is that horse racing should be accessible to everybody in South Africa. It's not a rich man's sport necessarily. It's not a gambling sport necessarily either.
It's a combination. Do you know what I always tell people? Hey, racing's like the human body, right? And sometimes in racing, I've called an arsehole. I have. But even the human body needs an arsehole, otherwise it cannot function.
Yes, of course. Of course. And I think,
there is a lot to racing. Pierre,
there is a lot to racing.
Striker, what about you? Come on.
Well, I wanted to ask Ashleigh, like, she only got introduced to horse racing lately. What was the reason why not earlier? I'm talking just from a layman's outlook, because why aren't people not getting into the game quicker, earlier? What's your opinion?
I think it's simply because people don't know.
No.
So we as I said, we were lucky enough to be invited. We didn't know what to expect. And I was astounded about how much horse racing has to offer. So maybe a lot of that has to do with marketing. Maybe horse racing is not being marketed to the everyday person. I remember saying it, like a person could go on a date to the movies or for dinner. What was so lovely about horse racing is it's a daytime event. It's tremendous fun. It doesn't have to cost you more than a dinner would cost somebody or a trip to the movies would cost somebody. Yeah. But people don't understand that that's what it can offer. I think when people think about horse racing, or certainly when I did prior, it's immediately linked to something like gambling. Yeah. It's immediately linked to something like a rich man's sport, which it already, just because of that connotation, excludes such a massive part of the population. And I think that's in my opinion, SA racing and marketing. And SA racing and marketing should know that there are people like myself out there who thoroughly enjoy the day out, will thoroughly come to a big race day event, and that creates exposure.
So I'll tell you what the issue is. One of the issues is when they try and convert you to racing, they want you in balls to the wall. Okay? So they don't view racing as another thing to do in your calendar year. They want to get their teeth stuck into you. Some of the people in the Cape, trainers, etc., they focus on you, they get you hooked, and it's all or nothing almost, right? What racing doesn't realize is, for example, you run a business, right? So your passion now is becoming racing, but you might also be into flowers, you might be into motocross, and you might be into table tennis. So you need to allocate some of your time to all of those passions, not all of your time to the one passion. So when racing tries to get you hooked, they say, right, buy a share in a horse, give us 100 grand. And because you've given us 100 grand, you've now got this commitment to racing. Okay. So, like what we've been doing at Glistian, literally since the 4th of January, is we're saying, give us 199 Rand a month and just come racing whenever you want. Big days, small days, it doesn't really matter. Okay. And actually, for example, last week at Turfentine, we're saying if our horse runs in the money, the day will be on us. So we had 7 people at Turfentine last week. I don't know if you know this, Pierre, and Street Art ran second. And the food and alcohol bill for those 7 or 8 people is like 8,000 Rand. So they've had a day at the races effectively for 199 Rand, but they've each had a grand's worth of fun. You could look at it like that. Some of them bet, some of them didn't. Some of them took pictures of the horses, some of them didn't. Some of them just interacted with other people, and it's just something else to do. It's not the be all and end all.
If it
I
wasn't suspended, I would have been there.
Sorry, Pierre?
If it wasn't suspended, I would have come and joined you. Because
If it wasn't suspended, correct. If you weren't suspended, then you would have been there. But that's what I'm trying to say. I'm not even. I spoke to a gentleman this morning, and he said to me, "Okay, so what do I get for my 199?" I said, "Well, just come whenever you want and just have fun, but don't." And he said to me, "But what if I invest in a horse?" And I'm saying, like, okay, well, you don't have to do that right now. Take a breath. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's also actually, as you know, it's all good going to the King's Plate and getting dressed and giving up 8 hours of your Saturday for an event, right? But you can just as well go to Turfentine on a quiet day and give up 3 hours and just go watch one of our horses run and have a little bit of fun. Just do something different. And I think that's where we miss racing misses the trick. It's almost like that Sun City mentality, which is come to our resort and don't leave.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
you're in now, you can eat here, watch a movie, play golf, get a massage. Do you know what I mean? Like, and racing needs to understand that we're competing with, on a Saturday, for example, we're competing with rugby, cricket, kids' birthday parties, all sorts of stuff. So, yeah, I think the barrier is it's all or nothing. And I think we need to change it. And we're trying our hardest. So everything Pierre and I do is to get people into racing. I mean, there's other people that do it as well, but we do this out of our own love for the sport, because the more people we can get to the races, I think the better atmosphere it is, more fun it is.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, I mean, it's definitely your approach is the right approach for, the current generation. So let's talk millennials. I'm a millennial.
Are
And
you?
I am, believe it or not.
Wow.
Millennials and Gen Z, we don't want to have those hard and fast commitments. We like to have a variety of activities. We don't like to be boxed in to say, well, that's what you do and that's the only thing that you do. And as you say, we want that flexibility. But I think what people are missing out on is they don't realize what a fun time you can actually have with racing, what it offers. And it doesn't include all those connotations of excessive drinking, excessive eating, excessive time, excessive gambling. There's none of those things that you have to commit to with racing. And if you are following a horse, I mean, I've asked a lot of questions, and I hope over time, particularly for people who don't know racing, that you cover these topics, like what is the lifespan of a racehorse? How do when do racehorses start racing? At what age are they peaking? So you can start in year 1 with the horse. Pick one of the, the formats of the races, pick a thing and follow it for the next 3 years. And hey, if you follow that horse and you have a great 3-year journey, and maybe you go to 3 or 4 big races and you bring your friends and you have a good day out, great. And the more people
and that should be sufficient. That should be sufficient.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And the more people that racing attracts, the greater the possibility of getting those all or nothing guys are.
The big funnel at the top.
Yeah, the probability of 1 out of 1,000 being a lifelong committed racing fanatic, let's call it, is much easier to find that guy if you're getting 1 million people through the gates. I also think, obviously, you know, what they've done with Cape Racing is the facilities are great. Access to the facilities are great. I know with Turfentine, I haven't been there myself physically, but the reports and the conversations I've had with people is that unfortunately the facilities at Turfentine are slightly lacking. So there's not much else that they're offering there, you know, in terms of like, get dressed up, go and have a great day. So maybe that's something that needs to be approached. And if the approach is looking at it like this is an entertainment venue, not that hardcore racing mindset that has place for long, maybe that will also change things as well. Because people will go to a particular mall, to a restaurant, as an entertainment venue, and maybe that is something that also needs to maybe at the racetrack.
So I get that, and look, you have to commend, and I have personally commended Greg and emailed them that aesthetically they've done a wonderful job in the Cape. I will tell you though, where obviously driving to Turfentine is not pleasing on the eye, but once you're in there and in the elevation room, for example, yeah, it's a little bit dated, but the vibe's okay. Do you know what I mean? And you're getting a great buffet there, and the food's not that. I mean, the booze is not expensive. So, but I think, look, I always turn left when I get on an airplane. Okay, and I think there's a place for all of that. I think there's a place for Cape racing, and I think yes, Turfentine could give a new lick of paint or something like that. But I also feel I spoke to somebody yesterday. Like we did an event the other day or last year, I should say, at a rugby match. Now, if you took corporate clients to a rugby match, any other events business would say to you, right, we've got you a box and you're going to be in a box, right? So we didn't do that. We had a couple of celebrities and we were in the stand with the guys. So, like, that was just as vibey and that was just as awesome. And I think it's always what you make of it and what you thinking you're gonna get out of it. So I think if you went to Turpentine, and I'm gonna tell you that as you're signing up as a member, like we discussed earlier, next time we have a runner at Turpentine, I'm saying to you, go, Ashleigh, and hang out with those youngsters and a couple of people your age and whatever, and you'll come away and you think, fuck, actually, that was a great day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not a dress up day. We have the Summer Cup up here. That's a dress up day, and
Champions Cup.
Champions Cup. We have a couple in Joburg that are dress up days, but I would say that the July down in Durban is a big event socially, and obviously the Cape Net and the King's Plate traditionally have always been that kind of thing. And I think, you live in Joburg, people have left the Cape for 600 years to go to Joburg. I mean, the Voortrekkers did it. Not unusual, right? Joburg's about graft, hustle, and bustle, and the mentality is different. So I think we cater for a different type of person out there.
I mean, what's the objective for let's call it Joburg racing? What's the objective for Mzansi racing? Like,
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Isn't that a key question for the players like yourselves to maybe get around the table and say, what is our objective? Maybe we're not the dress-up venue. Maybe we are that corporate in the stands rugby venue where we offering guys a corporate day. Come and do it. Team building is not where you have to physically, you can have a good time together. So maybe that's an approach.
So I'll answer your question. In Portuguese, we have a saying, right? Which is God gives nuts to those with no teeth. So unfortunately, some of the people in power in racing have got no idea and don't listen to people like myself because we're quite vocal in criticizing. So people in racing view criticism as negative. It's never, actually, let me think about it. It reminds me of my ex, actually. Every time I suggest something, it's a bad idea. Then 6 weeks later, she tells me the same thing. So it's almost like they've got to think of it, otherwise it's a cuck idea. You know what I mean? So, I think I don't want to get too personally into the slagging off who's who in the zoo, but I can tell you that I personally have brought 100 people into South African racing, if not 200, and I don't get anything out of it, you know. But I'm okay with that because I love the sport, you know. So, and I wouldn't be where I am today talking to somebody like you, um, and just saying to you, like, you know what, Ashleigh, like, just come along for the ride. You know, like I said, most people would be saying, all right, Ashleigh, we've got this lovely horse. I need you to give me 100 grand, and we're going to do A, B, C, and D. And they would either retain you or lose you over the next 2, 3 years, you know? And
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I've never had that approach. I think we need to get people to the races. How we get them there, I don't know. Literally, Pierre, just so you know, I got a quote to hire a bus from Potchefstroom to Turfentine. So I'm thinking
Jeez.
of bringing 20 students to the
Wow.
races, for
Wow.
example. Okay. Now, the bus is going to cost me 9.5 grand, and they're going to probably eat and drink like lunatics. There's no way I can recover that money, but I'm hoping that 5 or 6 of them subscribe to the club, and I'm hoping that one of them eventually likes racing. But we don't get any assistance in anything like that. I don't get a discount from the race scores. There is nothing in place, actually. We've literally got to do this ourselves. So, yeah, it's not
yeah.
easy.
And Strike, I mean, having raced all over the world, what is your, I'm going to put it out there. What would be your dream vision? And I'm going to specify Mzansi Racing. I've named it. There we go. Mzansi Racing. What is your dream vision for that? What would be your ideal scenario? How would it look? Would it be a casual, everyday, regular people coming into the racing? Would it be several big events of the year? Maybe you've got some ideas.
Yeah, I think sometimes when you do too much of a good thing, it becomes too common and average. So maybe I know I'll get shot down, but I think maybe less meetings, which makes it more of a event to attend. And then obviously punters attending the race course. For us, there's just such a vibe when it's a big day, for instance. And when I rode in Hong Kong, every meeting was a big day. I mean, Happy Valley, you felt like the audience or the crowd was sitting right on top of you because those grandstands are like almost straight up, vertical straight up, and you almost felt like they were on sitting on the horse with you. So there's such a nice vibe when there's people and a vibe. Yeah, that's from a jockey's point of view. That's what we would like to see.
But
Yeah.
we got to get the people there, right? So, you know, if there isn't a vision and a budget to say, okay, do you know what? Say, we're going to phone up South African breweries, and we're going to do a deal with them that we're going to get Castle. I don't know if Castle's still popular or not, but we're going to get Castle at a quarter of the price, and we're going to have a beer tent, right? And anybody that comes to Turfentine on Saturday, or Kenilworth or Timbuktu, whatever it is, right? Um, it's free to enter, and every beer that you buy, you get a 5 rand betting voucher, whatever it is, right? Just get them there because you need to get 1 million coming in to get 100,000 that sort of are going to come twice a year, to get 10,000 that are going to come 4 times a year, to get 2,000 that are going to come 10 times a year, and to get one that's going to buy a racehorse. Those are the numbers.
All right. So firstly, we can't. How can I say? The converted already, on Teletrack is already there. You need the
Yeah.
people from out there.
Correct.
Secondly, once the people or those students come, they want to have a flutter. They want to have a bet. Is there anyone who teaches them about these bets?
Nothing.
Because there's nothing when you get onto the course. Actually, I don't know how much betting you've done, actually, because you're quite new in it. And maybe you can tell us your experience of how did you end up understanding what bet to have on, or one horse in the race, or two horses in the race, or have you got
So from my side, I mean, it was really just talking to people, who I've been introduced to a part of racing. But when I arrived, I had no idea. I had very little understanding of any of how the bets worked. You get these lovely programs which end up being incredibly useful, but what the information is, and even online on the apps and the betting apps and that sort of thing, unless you're in it, or you know somebody in it who can explain it to you. You've got no clue. And from my point of view, my betting is not, it's really just for fun. It's like, you know, you're playing at the arcades, it's 50 Rand here, 20 Rand here, 100 Rand there. It was really not to make any money. It was just to be a part of the day and the vibe. And I've been lucky enough from the information that I've gathered over my various discussions to not have made any significant losses, but similarly, I haven't made any significant wins. But I've enjoyed my day, and where I've been, I've actually sort of come out of it sort of not having to pay for my day. My day was free, as it were, which is great. It always makes you feel great. But it's nice to have, as you say, that little flutter. You've got someone you're cheering on. And unfortunately, even at the race days, the information on the horses is extremely limited, and you have to really understand what you're looking at, or talk to somebody who understands what the information is in the booklet and so on to explain it to you. So I think there's this great need to take racing, and maybe people in the high ends of racing will hate what I'm saying, but I think you should get more people into racing. I think it doesn't have to be this all or nothing sport. It doesn't have to be a big betting, drinking, eating sport either. It can be something you do. But in order for it to be that, the information has to be more accessible on a base level. What is the race format for the day? What does it mean? You know, they've got all these even now I've been to a few races. I still don't understand the race format for the day. I've got a vague idea, but it's not enough. And I think that information can be very clear, very simple, very accessible, which makes the day for a newcomer much more fun.
Right. So let me tell you what Cape Racing did. So they did 90%. So it's amazing what they did, but I think that they still failed by 10%. So on Met Day, we're sitting at the table. I had two Western Province, or Stormers, whatever they're called now, two rugby players there as guests, their girlfriends, my girlfriend, a few. I mean, there were 9 of us at the table, right? And these two ladies came over and said, right, this is what we're doing. We're selling mystery tote tickets.
Yes. I had some of those people come up to me too.
So it's 100 Rand. You pay us 100 Rand. We give you 150 Rands worth of tote tickets. Okay. I analyzed that. So that was perfect up until she opened her mouth. Let me tell you why. And Greg and Justin, if you're watching, learn. I'm sitting there with novices. So I've got a millisecond to decide how we deal with this. So I bought 900 Rands worth. I gave it to them with an explanation. Do you understand? Yeah. They would not have sold all 9 with that sales pitch. Yeah. So if you're going to do it like that, you might as well incorporate that into whoever's attending the races. So you've bought a ticket because they were charging people to come in. You might as well just piggyback that onto it straight away.
I agree.
As opposed to coming around afterwards and trying to upsell. I get the logic of upsell, but with regards to betting, I don't, because actually then at our table, everybody was stimulated with regards to following a horse for, I think it was 3 or 4 races, and that was awesome. Then the questions start flowing. How did I do? And that's what you want to do, you know? So listen, I'm conscious of time because, you know, these things do drag on a bit long. Pierre, I'm going to play a video after this, which will be on the thing that we put out on Into the World, but I found a certainty for this weekend.
Please tell us.
And I'm telling you now, the way it's going to work is like this. If somebody's a Glistian member between now and Friday and have subscribed for the 199, if this horse gets beat, I'll refund the 199. Is that a good deal?
Very good deal. I would take it.
Apart from when I tell you what the horse is, because you are Mr. Cautious.
Okay.
How can Thunderstruck get beat on Saturday?
Yeah. Well, it's a 1200, isn't it?
Yeah, perfect.
Been dying for the 1200 because he's not a very speedy horse in the beginning. He's sort of he's a sprinter, but he's sort of a one-pace sprinter. And unfortunately, I'm suspended. Good fight. He's
so there's a downgrade in the jockey, eh?
Yeah, for sure. That's a length of 2. Huge runner. I
think he's a good thing. He's only carrying 59 kilos. He's getting a kilo from a horse that he beat last time. Actually, this is all Chinese, but you'll get more and more into it.
I know Thunderstruck. I've seen him race before, so it's not entirely Chinese.
No, so Thunderstruck's a really good horse. Sean Terry trains it. Pierre's ridden him his last 3 starts, I think.
Last start.
His
Three
last 2
starts.
starts. Yeah, but have you ridden him before?
No, I won at Kenilworth, and then ran second on him.
Second, yeah. So I think he's a good thing on Saturday. I really think, and I'm going to put up a video of his last win. Ashleigh, it's been awesome having you on. I'm going to send you a link so you can join us and be more involved. Don't buy shares in horses with everybody that's going to contact you now. Just enjoy it.
No, thank you very much.
but-
I have enough on my plate
Yeah.
to worry about horses, but I do enjoy following them.
Yeah, what we're definitely going to do, though, because we did this very organically today, is I'm going to ask Aoife, my PA, to schedule another chat with you in a month's time. And then I want you to actually ask us the questions that you have. But send me the questions first. If they are about breeding or whatever, we'll get another person in, like a breeder or something like that. But thank you, guys. Strikes. I'll chat to you soon. Ashleigh, been lovely having you on.
Thanks so much, Joe. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.